Journal of the American Revolution. A soldier's life in the 18th century was surely difficult. Most people think only the total war that raged on, where troops marched toward uncertainty and the possible death in battle lines, firing volleys at one another, but it wasn't always about facing the enemy. Military life was full of its own dangers, even when no battles raged. I assure you, even in the regular, normal army, all kinds of stupid shit happens.
Oh, yeah.
Pop and I have both seen deaths in motor pools,
Mm.
deaths in staging areas,
Train yards.
train yards.
Yeah. I didn't see the guy die, but
Yeah.
he didn't make it.
We got there to first tank had their motor pool right in front of the entrance to Camp Casey. And we went there to pick a bunch of guys up that were new recruits from the repo depot. And the ground guide
Got pinched.
And for the M1 tanks, they're huge. They're damn near the size of a city bus. They have ground guides around them when they're moving them in the motor pool so that the driver can park that thing because it doesn't exactly have rear view mirrors.
Yep.
And one of the ground guides lost control of what he was doing. The ground guide behind the tank wasn't paying enough attention and was pinched between two tanks just above the waist.
And that happens quite often back in the day.
Yeah.
It happened a lot with the M60 tanks as well. And during World War II, while they were getting ready to go over to England, they probably lost a couple dozen guys getting crushed and ran over by the rolling stock back in the day.
Yeah.
It's very common.
Yeah, it's alarmingly common. And in the Navy version of that is guys being cut in half by the arresting cables on the carrier decks.
Oh, yeah. That's a bad one.
That I heard a couple of freaking horror stories about that from our naval counterparts.
Yep.
Even moving from one camp to another involved countless jobs for the soldier that would test his physical and mental acuity, from building huts in the brutal cold to having to do picket duty in the heavy snow or the humid summer heat. Been there, done that. So
done all that
probably
shit.
more than I have. No, definitely more than I have. You were a freaking 11 bullet catcher.
Yes. Yeah. I built many a hooch in all kinds of terrain and weather, and it sucked.
Yeah.
I mean, I looking back on it, I felt that's the most alive I've ever felt in my life. Mm-hmm. But it is what it is.
Eventually, after a while, we got tired of it and boiled it down to the sleeping bag you needed for the weather, some bungee cords, a poncho, and a poncho liner, and a hammock.
Yeah,
we would string a fucking caterpillar cocoon.
Yeah,
that was it.
I did that many times myself.
We knew it was going to suck. We were just like, okay, we're going to do the minimal amount of work we need to do because it's going to suck no matter what we do.
The best hooch I ever built, I actually had a little fireplace.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, we used heaters, little heater thingies.
I built it out of rocks and mud.
Yeah.
And it was going out of the hole. I'm like feeding wood into it. My squad leader's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm warming up. What the fuck? It's like, who builds a fucking... This is insane!
You built a fireplace
in a foxhole, pretty much.
Yeah.
It was an M60 hole. It was pretty big.
Yeah, sure.
And you put like 6 people in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you just flat out built a fire...
In the corner, yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
What are you going to do?
That's outstanding. That's fantastic.
And I never forget the squad leader. It's like, who does this? And I'm like, what? Yeah. Sorry. Went off in the weeds.
Didn't even account for the disease which plagued the soldiers' tent community. We talked about that. Poor food rations and being ill-equipped and barely clothed played a huge part in the mortality rates of the Pennsylvania Continental Line. Those who survived did not always leave the service as they entered. You're going to be missing stuff. Some men suffered a little bit more than others and lived to tell the tale to their pension boards during the war. Or during and after the war. You think you're having a tough day? Quite probable those poor men had it far worse than you. Some of them even received bizarre and terrible wounds in the defense of their country, while others just made mistakes while soldiering off the battlefield. Here are some of the more troubling ones that we've heard.
Yep.
Let's see how close it matches up with ours.
All right.
Accidentally soldiered too hard. I'd like to know how this happens. What do you have to do to lose your sight? John Carney, late a private soldier in the 9th Pennsylvania Regiment, aged 35 years, made appear to this court that he lost his eyesight by reason of severe duty and hardship he underwent in the Army of the United States.
It doesn't tell you how.
Doesn't tell you how, but he lost his eye. Well, that doesn't surprise me terribly.
There was no safety glasses back then.
There were none.
No.
Handling a firearm for most of these soldiers was something they were doing for the first time when they enlisted. That is categorically false. Pretty much everybody had a firearm back then.
Or had knowledge of how to use one.
Yeah, in the continental United States. I don't know where they got that idea.
There was Indians and,
well, you had to hunt for game.
Ruffians.
A lot of these people didn't have large herds of cattle.
Nope.
You hunted game. You hunted deer and rabbit and stuff, and there was no poaching. Like in England, you couldn't kill game at all. Everything belonged to the king, and you would be hanged or put in prison for it. You got to the Americas, and all of a sudden there's game everywhere, and you can eat anything you want.
If you can
catch it. So everybody had a rifle. So I don't know where they got that from. The petition of Simon Gore was read, setting forth that the petitioner had been a private in Captain Thomas Palmer's company of rifle militia of this city last summer campaign. That by the accidental discharge of a rifle, the ball and wiper thereof passed through both of the petitioner's thighs and most terribly shattered the bone of one. I have heard of this, and one of my buddies was shot through the calf by a moron during a freaking Calfax.
Yeah. We had a guy shot in the parking lot in the Ranger Battalion with a 45 caliber, and the bullet was still in his calf, and it's probably there to this day.
Oh yeah, you told me that one. They were like driving around or something, and
they were out drinking and driving, carousing. They came back to the barracks. One guy got out of the vehicle, was fucking around repositioning his fucking pistol. Boom! It went through the door of the seat and into his calf. It would have taken his leg off if it didn't go through the door of the seat and then hit his leg.
45 is a big fat slug that takes a lot of stuff with it when it hits.
And he returned to duty, and 2 months later,
when we got to Camp Essayance, 635 Field Artillery had just left the base. They left an arms room, and they left us a crate of 10 grease guns.
Ooh.
Oh, with a bunch of ammo. Straight to the range.
Yeah.
Straight.
I love that thing.
Dude, they're so cool.
And those things were cheap to make, too. All right, let's keep going.
Pressed metal. Frostbite. Oh, this one is one I know.
Yes.
Michael Tudor, late a soldier in the Pennsylvania Regiment, commanded by blank Captain blank Company. He lost his feet by the severity of the winter on the lines in 1777 under Colonel Morgan. I have seen Frostbite and Bill Blaine and everything else.
One of the worst. The frostbite I saw, the guy's toe had turned black. It looked like it was mummified.
Yes.
And I remember the medic is like, that that toe's gone, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, what? You can save it. He goes,
no.
Nah, they're going to cut that off, bro.
Yeah.
I'm just preparing for you now.
Yeah.
He went on the helicopter. It cut his toe off.
Yeah. Probably one of those sad fellows without a blanket. To John Thompson, late a sergeant of Captain Dalbert's company in the Pennsylvania Regiment, aged about 50 years. There you go. This guy's 50, and he's a sergeant in the regiment.
50.
That he was transferred from his said regiment to the Regiment of Invalids and discharged for the same as unfit for further duty in either garrison or the field on account of his disability occasioned by a frost in lying out in the camp in the hard winter, by where he rendered incapable of getting a livelihood by the labor. So what this tells me is the idiot camped on the ground.
Yeah, he lost. He's an invalid.
Probably messed him up.
He probably didn't live much longer. He's 50. He probably didn't see 55.
Yeah. Never, ever, 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 ever sleep on the ground if you don't have to.
Unless you make your own fireplace. Just saying.
Don't play with sharp objects. To Christopher Barris, late a private in the 10th Pennsylvania Regiment, and from thence transferred to the Regiment of Invalids, aged about unspecified years, that he was discharged from the regiment, from the same Regiment of Invalids on account of a wound received by a stroke of a broad axe, which he received in the year 1778 in the service of the United States. Somebody's on the field with an axe. I'm smelling Hessians.
Yeah. Well, there was that time when we were hitting each other with the big big wood mallet that you.
Oh, for driving the stakes for the GP Large.
Yeah, everyone
put your black vest on.
Yeah, go ahead, hit me.
Okay, man. Okay, hit me. Oh my God.
We were so stupid.
When Pop and I first reconnected back in 2009, he and I were sitting in his living room in front of the fire, watching Ranger TV, which means two guys staring at a fire and drinking a beer. And we started talking about that, like, because we've all done that. If
Yes.
we're in the Army for long enough, with the time we were in, you hit each other with the big wooden mallet used to drive the stakes for the big tents. That is absolutely a thing.
And here's the funny part.
Funny as hell. And somebody always gets knocked out.
Or knocked down.
Yeah, or knocked down. And an officer always comes running.
But I've seen it, like, once I got my E5, E6, E7, I saw soldiers doing that, and I'd be like, I'd watch. I'm like, all right, just give me a minute.
Yeah.
All right. Now we'll go stop it. Once they hit each other a couple times, like, hey, knock that off.
Yeah.
Nobody gets hurt.
Knock it out. Oh my God.
Everyone did that.
Yeah.
At some point, yeah, go ahead, hit me there. Because it's like a railroad tie that's cut into this like 12 by 12 block of
mallet.
wood.
It's a massive mallet.
Yeah.
With like an 8.5, 9-inch head.
Yeah.
It was Hessian's.
Comedy gold.
Yeah. Oh my God. Absolutely. But this guy apparently got taken off the battlefield by a broad axe. Now, if you don't know what a broad axe is, the head on those things are like this.
Yep.
Show the one on the wall behind you.
Well, this is
that's not a broad axe. That is a battle axe.
Yeah.
But it is still, you can imagine being hit by that. Now, something probably 4 times that size.
Well, no, usually it'd be double the size of the size of the blade.
For a broad axe?
Yes.
I think it's bigger than that.
No, usually it's about 8 inches. I collect weaponry.
Am I thinking of a Bardachet?
No. I collect weaponry.
It's fine. I understand. Best this lad wished he had an ergonomic lifting practices back in the 18th century. To George Parker, late a private of the 6th Pennsylvania Regiment, aged about 24 years, when he received a hurt in his leg in erecting huts at James Island in South Carolina in the service of the United States. So he probably like wrecked a leg really bad.
It sounds like a torn tendon.
Or something like that. That's another injury that happened all the time.
If you got injured where you needed surgery back then, you didn't get surgery. You were just injured forever.
And you were also sent on your merry way.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
So that's not unusual even in our army.
No.
I had injuries like that.
Mm-hmm.
They'd send you to the TMC and here's some Motrin, drink water.
Well, we had one guy, his arm came out of socket doing chin-ups.
I saw that on an obstacle course.
Yeah,
I also saw a hip come out of socket on the obstacle course.
Well, this injury got him like kicked out of the regiment. He had to go down the leg land.
Oh no!
Because you're supposed to be able to do parachute stuff.
Yeah.
And if your arm pops out of socket,
you're not pulling. Yeah.
That was it for him.
No.
He was only like, I think 23. It could happen to anyone.
So he'd be like a circle floater. He could pose one direction.
Circle floater. Yeah. I've had guys just going down the steps, roll an ankle. And they're, laid up for 4 to 6 weeks.
I rolled an ankle on a run to the point where when my buddy Bill Hunter came over to try and help me up, I knocked him out.
Yeah, that happened. That fucking hurt.
I was seeing white.
Yeah.
Like literally, not exaggerating. Actually, like my vision was like, seeing white.
Pain is a weird fucking thing.
Yeah.
And what we're trying to tell you is, even back then, it was worse because they didn't have the shit we have today.
With the exception of the broad axe, everything they've said here, Pop and I have seen in some form.
Yeah, I haven't seen anyone hit with an axe.
No. Hammer, yes. Axe, no. Disease and unsanitary conditions cause incidents like this to occur more frequently than you probably know. The petition of William Maris was read, setting forth that the petitioner was a private soldier in the 2nd Battalion of Militia commanded by John Bayard, Esquire, in the latter year of 1776, that the petitioner, while on actual service at the period, contracted a most violent cold in his head when concentrated in his right eye and obliged him to leave camp, which was then at Bristol, and return to the city of Philadelphia in order to be cured. That after undergoing a variety of medical treatment by several eminent surgeons at great expense, he was at last obliged to suffer the operation of having his eye taken. He probably got a very bad sinus infection, and they did not have antibiotics at the time.
Yep.
That was not a thing. If you got a sinus infection, you were just kind of screwed, and, well, you could lose an eye because it would fall out of your fucking head.
Probably ruined the sinus cavity and the whole deal.
Most of the casualties in the much later Civil War were from shit like this.
Disease. Yeah.
Yes.
And putting their peckers in the wrong holes.
That would also cause problems.
Yep.
That could also problems. Chopping wood, it's serious business. What happened next was just tragic. To Abraham Bates, late a corporal in the 10th Pennsylvania Regiment, wounded in the leg by an axe cutting wood, afterwards wounded in the other leg in the day of the Battle of the Brandywine. So
wait a minute. He was injured and went into battle and got... Okay, that's a hard motherfucker right there.
Yeah. We're going to roll on down here to wounded in battle, where, ouch, the court having examined and considered the case of James Brannan, late a private in the 2nd Pennsylvania Regiment, aged about 35 years. Note the ages here.
Yeah.
24, 35. There's a whole lot of ages like that amongst the privates in these regiments. Find that he was wounded in the groin in an attack on the blockhouse in Bergen County in July 1780 in the service of the United States. I do not want to get shot in the with a musket.
No. I watch that stuff on YouTube where they shoot the gelatin bodies with bones and stuff in it.
Dude.
It's very comparable to getting hit with a 12-gauge slug.
Dude.
You're done.
Dude.
It's bad.
Wounded in the groin.
Yeah. I mean, your groin is gone.
Yeah. I'm like, we're 300 years out, 250 years out, and I'm sitting here uncomfortable.
Yeah.
At the thought of it.
I won't get shot in the pecker with a 22, let alone a 75 caliber musket ball.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just not right. To Thomas Carahan, late a private of the 7th Battalion of the Chester County Militia, aged about 61 years, that he was wounded in the night before the Battle of the Brandywine while on detachment by the enemy's light horse, and as he fell, he was trampled under the horse's feet and bruised all over in the service of the United States. Being trampled by an animal is an unpleasant experience.
I've never been I've been kicked by a horse, but I've never been run over by a horse.
I have been shoved over and almost trampled, and I will tell you that just almost trampled is scary enough.
Well, I mean, I've seen people, like horses walk up and like literally take their head and throw a dude like 15 feet like he's nothing.
Yeah.
That's how powerful these fucking animals are.
Yeah, people don't understand that you can't play around with.
No.
That was when I was young. I grew up in Shelby, and we go ride my friends' horses all the time. So we learned right away all that. That's where I got knocked over and almost trampled.
Yeah, it can kill you.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. When you go to Yellowstone, don't try to pet the fluffy buffaloes.
No.
Do not pet the fluffy buffalo. Do not pet the buffaloes.
Yeah, you will get wrecked.
Don't pet the fluffy cows.
Ironically, this man was named after an interpreter of divine omens. He didn't see this coming. To Harmenius Thornton, late a private in Colonel Proctor's regiment of artillery, aged about 40 years.
God damn, these guys are older.
That he was hurt, and that's what they had, man. They didn't have hordes of young 18-year-olds to send off to these battles.
Yeah, you're right.
And they needed those on the farm. So the parents, the fathers would go.
I understand.
That he was hurt at the Battle of Germantown by a cannon run over him in the service of the United States. Run over by a cannon.
Yeah, it's not working out.
Watch Grunt Speak live every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you want to join Pop for Supporter Sundays, go to redonkulous.com/donate and make a monthly pledge. A link is in the Meat Gazer box.